Yep, we're good.
I don't see any lights yet.
She says it's good. It's good.
Hold on. Let me see if I can.
The one I have at home has a light on.
Yeah, see, it's moving.
It's moving.
Is it? It's not moving on my screen now. Yeah, it's frozen.
Do you want me to just unplug everything?
No, I don't think it's that. I think I'll just restart this.
Sandy's fault.
Let it go.
Yes, good. Now we're moving.
All right, so at 6:02, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, we have the meetings, minutes of December 1st. Wish of the board? Move as written. Moved by Jeff, we have a second. Second. Seconded by Nate. Any changes or amendments or tweaks or tunes to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next up, we have public comments. Any members of the public wish to comment?
Greg Whitmore, North Road. Let's see. So there's some documents I've been trying to track down. I'm hoping you can help me. Number one, I'm hoping you could provide me a list of schools without mask mandates that have more cases than any other school. I haven't been able to track that down. Probably doesn't exist because we will look around the state, there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. I have been going through this baby right here. More than 400 studies on the failure of compulsory COVID interventions. Within this, there are 97 separate articles. These are not opinion pieces, these are scientific peer-reviewed pieces that talk about the ineffectiveness of masks. It's a charade at this point. 9 about the failure and negative effects of mask mandates, and 61 articles about how masks are actively harming children. And there's been some really crushing ones coming out lately, particularly talking about students or children who have been born since the pandemic and how shockingly far behind they have fallen with just all of their general skills. And it's completely coming down to covering their faces, not letting them see facial expressions, having difficulty hearing, communicating. I mean, these are having real impacts on kids, real impacts. And nobody can point to actual proof that this is doing anything besides just people saying, hey, at least we're trying something, at least we're doing something, at least by you having that on it, showing you're complying. Well, it's real physical damage. It's damage mentally, it's damage physically, and when's it gonna stop? When will it stop? I can't imagine when masking will stop at this point. I know when it could stop. As soon as you say, hey, they're not required. And you know what would change with the cases? Absolutely nothing. Because that's what we see in any school around not just the state, but the country. There is no difference whatsoever. And if you took the time to look into it, you'd come to the exact same conclusion. So I'm gonna forward this to all of you. I'll send you the link. I don't expect you to go through 400 studies, but just with the abstracts that are given, you can get the gist of it and then delve into the ones that you would like to see further. It's pretty eye-opening stuff, and it's not from what you would consider biased publications or anything like that. This is legitimate peer-reviewed stuff, people. I mean, it's there. We can't just look at one side of things. We can't just put masks on kids just to say we're doing something, just to say we're blindly following recommendations, because they'll recommend this stuff forever. I mean, kids have the harshest restrictions of anyone. Why? Because they're little. We can push them around, right? We can make them do what we want. And if you don't want
Wrap
your-
it up, sir.
What's that?
You can try to wrap it up, you're at the time.
We didn't say there was a time restriction.
It's been part of the policy all along.
I think we should say that, because that makes a big difference on how I'm going through this, all right? So kids have the harshest restrictions overall, right? Because we can threaten parents with your kid can't come to school if you don't do this. So what option do I have? 2 working parents, where's my kid gonna go, right? Well, if I'm getting cut off here, how is high school choice not a public discussion? Last time it was, we're in negotiations, period. I think the public should know every single step of this, and you need to be completely transparent as to what's going on. I don't want this thing sprung on me all of a sudden at some meeting where you say, we picked this, too bad. Right, we need to know what's going on at every step of the way. And did somebody really ask, last meeting, can vaccines be mandated? Somebody asked that at the last meeting. Come on, people, we're better than this, all right? Well, if I'm out of time, that's it. So looking forward to the next meeting where, according to what you talked about a few months ago, you're gonna discuss making masks optional again because everybody's been vaccinated at this point, right? All right, thank
Sir,
you.
if you could forward that to us, I'd appreciate seeing that.
I will.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Did she want to talk?
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry. My name's Bobby Ann Dosty. I live on Brown Road. Today, I got to visit our SAU 53 office at Pembroke Academy. I arrived at approximately 10:19 a.m. and I was walking up the stairs and I saw a pleasant, free-faced receptionist. She hurried over to greet me and threw her mask on her way. Patty Sherman came to say hello as well. I appreciate that. I know she had a meeting or something. Patty told me that masks were required in the public school building. When I asked why her staff can breathe freely at their desk, Sherman explained that they're allowed to take them off when they're sitting, but they're required to wear masks whenever they stand up. To me, that's a little funny because why is it that our SAU is allowed to be free-faced while they're sitting, but our children at our public school, as well as our staff, are forced to wear suffocating devices at their desks? I'm asking you this not to point fingers at all. I was happy to see her smile at me, and I was happy to see that she was breathing freely. I'm asking you to use common sense. Masks cause great physical and emotional issues for my children and myself, I'm not gonna lie, and I don't know how you can do it all. I don't know how you can do it all day. Like, I don't. You already know this. I've already explained that to you. You also know that you do not have the right to enforce any harmful restraints on any other human being without their consent. You continue to force abusive protocols on our children and neglect to correct your actions. You can force your children to do whatever you like. Do you. I'm all for that. Just don't tell me what to do with mine. And for them to be forced to do that to get their tax-paid education, it breaks my heart. On November 17th, I submitted a right to know request for all board emails regarding face coverings at DCS. Today, 28 days later, I was happy to go and review them. Although I purchased 324 copied pages of these emails, more than half of them were duplicates, and some of them were not even referencing the mask mandate at all. Out of all of the emails to the board that specifically discussed mask mandates at DCS from June 8th of this year, 2021, to November 17th when I requested the copies, 42 emails requested masks be optional at our public school, 42. 32 exactly asked to enforce the mandate. I was a little confused by that number because continually our public is told that they're even, that, oh, it's completely even, that it's, half of them want to optional, half of them want to mandate. If a majority is saying, hey, something's wrong, my kid is having severe trouble, and it's sad, reading them was actually it broke my heart for that too, and seeing that a majority of the people that asked for it to be mandated didn't even have children in the school, that even hurt me more. But anyway, I appreciate all your hard work, and that is, it's pretty gruesome. It was a lot of work for you to get that to me. Please just start thinking outside the box and make your own decisions, and thank you for your time.
All right, agenda review. You have any changes, Patty?
I just wanted to note that there was an earlier version of the agenda, if anyone had the older version, that we inadvertently put the mask mandate on there. It was 4F, the agenda was revised, but I think it was posted first. So that was intended to be for the January 5th agenda. So if anyone is out there with a 4F on their agenda that says mask mandate, that was a mistake and it was reposted and corrected. And then under informational items, we should have the matrix. And under policy GBCD, that the amendments are not ready tonight for that.
All right, so we tabling policies?
Yes,
Okay.
just that one.
Just the
Yeah.
GBCD. I saw Andy's hand first, but I'll come back to you, Nate. Go ahead, Andy.
If we could, I don't know if it would be in place of where the masks was on, the immediate business, but some sort of board FAQ that we could publish on our website.
Do you wanna put that in for, F? Patty?
Sure.
Andy will lead the charge on that one.
Sure.
Nate?
Just to I'm not, I guess I'll hear more, but I wonder whether that's better just as informational, because I'm not sure what we're getting at with that, but I'll wait till then and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Andy's got an idea. Let's hear it.
Yeah, no, great. In a similar way, I think I brought this up last meeting, but talking about our self-eval sort of process and thinking about as a board, how do we start to get into that? We declined to put a policy in place, but is there time for putting that on the agenda today, or do we just come back to informational and wait until next meeting? I'm open to whatever the board thinks.
Thoughts on that? So that would be, what's the board want to do?
I wanted to slice and dice it more, I just haven't had the time to.
Jeff
I don't know
said
if
it's
it's-
a wait edition. You want to push it out,
Wait till next meeting.
next meeting we have.
So
Can
we
do
meet
the
after
second?
that, it sounds like.
The meeting, so the next meeting, we are planning for the building committee to consume a fair bit of time.
That's fine, that it could be later.
Okay. So if we shoot for that
I'll keep it on my
January,
reminder list.
I think that puts us on around the 22nd of January.
All right, and then I just had one other informational that when we get there.
Okay, what do you got?
It'll be information. Or do you want to,
Informational for Nate, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No.
All right, and we do have a non-public, Patty, correct? So
Yes, we
going
do.
under small letters L and
And
C.
C.
Okay. All right, we do have a couple, any other agenda review items? No, okay, so we have a couple of consent items. Those would be invoices from Dale, which you should have in your packets. So we have high school transportation and elementary transportation, so I'll go ahead and make a motion, or look for a motion, that we approve the payment to Dale for $13,266.46. That would be for 17 days of busing in November for the high school, for the two buses.
So moved.
Motion by Nate, second by
Second.
Gigi. Any discussion regarding that? All in favor? Aye. All right, so I look for a motion to approve the November invoice to Dale, or from Dale, for the elementary transportation. That would be 16 days at $33,048. And that would be for the 6 buses we had in November on 16 school days. So I'll look for a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved by Andy, seconded by Gigi. Additional discussion?
This may be worth saying that we're able to transport the students that we need to get to school, or maybe it's a question. Have we been able to transport the students?
I was gonna say, I don't think I.
Has the school in Dale been able to transport the students that we need to get to school on buses without, I guess?
You're asking, is it working right now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what Andy was asking.
Yeah, we still have quite a, they talk about 2 complete rounds and then probably like a half of one. So Brian's still estimating about 100 cars a day in the morning and in the afternoon. There is some room on the bus. I've not gotten a request for a student on the bus in quite some time.
And we're doing one runs, I think.
Yeah,
the
oh yeah,
last-
oh yeah.
So,
Is it worth, I know it's kind of an odd time of the year, but historically Dale's given us bus rider numbers. Is it worth at least asking to
Sure.
see
Could do that.
if the buses are full or empty or somewhere in between
For the high school as well.
for the high school as well?
Are you gonna ask her or do you want me to? You can do it. Thank you.
I could do that, sure.
So whenever that comes back, we just float it into informational.
Are we at risk of losing a driver? I know that
Oh, that's a good point.
one of our drivers was supposed to be temporary until they found it permanent.
Yep, there was a snowbird, he's left, someone else was hired, came from already trained, and it was just a swap. So Tom is a Dale,
So we're losing anybody, I think is the question.
yeah, no, we didn't.
Okay.
Someone went to Florida, but someone that does seasonal work left that, was done that position and came on.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
So we're covered.
Okay.
Or covered.
Well, that's good news. All right. Anything else regarding, I guess, Dale? Nope, all right. So we have a review of correspondence. So we talked about over the last couple of meetings. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of the $33,048?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Nate.
That was only one of them, did we vote on both of them?
We already did.
We did both of
Okay.
them, right?
Okay, thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
All right, so we talked at the last meeting about moving emails and attaching them to the minutes, and we talked about kind of trying to codify it. Because when the emails get in and when they get forwarded, I think the easiest way to do it is simply take, as I receive emails that are addressed to the board, I'll forward them to Patty. I think Patty's gonna add some additional stuff to this as well. But I'll forward them to Patty, and the thought process, quite frankly, is any emails that are in the packet this week get attached to the meeting minutes for the following, meeting. That will also allow Patty an opportunity to make sure there isn't any student-specific information that needs to be edited or redacted out. I did ask about redacting the senders' names, and that is something that Patty said we cannot do. So if we do choose to do it, if we receive an email from person A, the email will show that it came from person A, but the student-specific information we can redact.
Yes, so I think it's gonna be much easier for us to keep up, to do it every 2 weeks, so regardless of whether or not you publish them with your minutes, I'm gonna ask that you send them to me, so that way I'm only gonna get one from Zach, but if it's addressed to the board, if you get something that was sent just to you and not the rest of the board, send that to me. We're gonna print them and I'm gonna redact the student information, because we don't have the resources, for the hours and hours that it takes, and I got all of them forwarded from you, and I had to print them all, and then the receptionist had to read them all and tab all the areas that she thought might need redaction, and then I had to take a black marker, and it was a lot of work and a lot of hours, and we just can't let them pile up like that, so I think if we do it this way, there won't be duplicates, the work will be done as we go along, and then we'll have them.
And I certainly know that I felt like I was bombing the SAU's office when I was going through my stuff.
All the budget binders that are being done for all 5 towns and all the budgets, and yeah, it's just.
So,
I'm sorry, I didn't wanna interrupt, I forgot to tell you, I think it's your document. Like, it's not an email.
Oh, stuck in there?
And I just didn't, a binder, or, I don't know.
Thank you. Sorry.
thank you. All right, so,
So just to finish up, so that you know when I'm redacting, we've had some really scary situations in the SAU with children and parents and split homes, so I probably go more overboard than I need to, but I go so far as to, if someone says, my son, I cross it off, so that you don't even know if that parent has a daughter, a son, a 3rd grader or 4th grader, just any personal information, so they may say my child, and that's fine, they have a child in the school, but I really do try to protect confidential information and let, so that people don't even know how many children you have, what grades they're in, that kind of stuff.
I would certainly give discretion to the superintendent to withhold any emails from the minutes if you felt it was
Yeah, I redacted it with a marker,
necessary,
so
but
that all the content's there.
I know there's potentially some situations that you may be aware of that we certainly wouldn't be, and so I will be comfortable with that. But, so I think the first question is does the board want to start attaching emails to the minutes? And if so, are we comfortable doing it in that fashion?
So I guess the question I have is,
And that would be, initially, my thought is that would specifically be emails addressed to the board as a whole.
Yeah, you had said individual ones, we wouldn't be forwarding individual.
It's up to you, any email to the board is subject to right to know, so it depends on what the board wants to do, but in terms of what you wanna publish, I mean, you don't have to publish anything unless there's a request, but in terms of managing the volume, right now, I mean, typically it's not this high, but you're getting a lot of emails.
so I think to keep it simple, we want emails addressed to the board or to Patty. That's,
Zach will do it.
sorry, yeah, let Zach forward them to
Yeah.
Patty. That way we have one point. I think it's gonna get overwhelming if I've got emails, what constitutes an email if it's regarding something to do with the building committee, from the architect, or from someone on the marketing committee, right?
So, why don't we start with the emails that go to the board as a whole? Does that work?
Yeah, that's a good point, you've got committee work and you're getting a lot right now about the, yeah.
So, let's start with emails to the board, we forward up, Patty can redact, attach them to the minutes. And then frankly, at that point, if they're requested, anybody that requests them can be directed to the minutes and they're all there.
Yep.
And then, they are what they are.
I was just gonna say, like, for the public, I feel like I'm speaking for all of us, is that we want to be able to respond to constituents, or at least to be able to have them know that, yes, we've received your email and we will address we heard you and we'll address, those topics or whatever. It's always, to me, it's just such an interesting thing, being an elected official, but then having this kind of like weird system where you can't really freely respond to someone. And I think it's important for people to understand that, like, we just don't, it's difficult to freely, like, oh, we'll just type back, an answer to that particular email. That we have to make sure that we are following lawfully our correspondences and how it plays out in terms of making sure that, we don't have a meeting by mistake and so on. So I just wanted to say that publicly, that it's not for lack of wanting to communicate with the community.
You might want to do a canned response that you do a little paragraph that explains that, and then when you get an email, you have to retype it every time, but you could just, informationally let people know, like, thank you, I received your email, this is the way we handle correspondence, and then it's pre-written, and then you can feel like at least you responded.
Yes.
Just a thought.
And that's, actually, I was putting some out that particular way, like, thank you, this is the
Confirming receipt.
protocol, yes, because otherwise, people send an email, they may not pay, they missed the meeting, they didn't see the minutes, and then they're like, I emailed them, I didn't hear a thing back. And I know, Zach, you were answering, you were.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is a canned response, it's thank you for your email, the board will review it at the next meeting.
Yes,
And that's what you get. I'm not a novelist, and I certainly have no time to spend an hour or two a day responding to 100 different emails, and quite frankly, my opinion is irrelevant if I'm not sitting as a member of this board. So
right.
It doesn't do us anything. All right, so matter at hand, Nate,
Oh, we'll settle this one, then I'll.
okay, matter at hand, are we attaching the emails that are addressed to the board to the meeting minutes, yes or no?
Just a point of clarification, so emails up to a certain date before the meeting,
If they're
and
in
then
the
they get
binder,
added to the following notes?
yeah, so basically, if they make it into the binder, they go into the following meeting's minutes. If they haven't made it into the binder for this meeting, then they end up in the next binder and. they-
So theoretically, a citizen would email the board and we may or may not talk about that topic for 2 weeks.
It could be, if you email the
Or
board
2
on
meetings.
Tuesday morning before a meeting, and I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, I may not look at your email until Wednesday or Thursday in that case. So if that's the case, then you kind of miss that meeting slot, but that's why my thought process is, as I get them, I typically shoot them up to Patty anyway, but if they're in the binder, they slide into the bulk minutes, because really it's when they're in the binder is when they become part of our, they're part of it when we get them, but I mean, that would.
And there'll be a lag time too. We can make sure that you have them, obviously, they're emailed to you.
Right.
But I need to be able to print them and redact them too, so it's gonna, there may be a little bit
There
of
may
lag
be
before they're
occasionally
in
one
the
that ends
minutes.
up outside of a minute or something, but the general gist of it is, I'd rather it be published and attached to a set of minutes 2 weeks late than spending 5 hours on a Tuesday forwarding emails. So that's part of my solution.
So the redacting seems to be the time-consuming endeavor. Does it?
I don't think it'll be as bad with only getting one. You know, when,
I carpet bomb that.
Where
yeah, I
I'm
mean, but
going
I
with
got
this
them from
is-
all of you and we couldn't review them and pull out
Right.
like, oh, we read this 200 pages ago, that's a duplicate, or, I mean, this is gonna be much easier for everyone involved.
Where I'm
People who
going with
want
this
them and me.
Can we ask the community if they're emailing the board, if it's about a policy or a topic, and they're either in favor of it or against it, can it be the subject line, like in favor of?
I don't
Does that
think,
leak?
I don't think you'll get enough of a broadcast on that for people to realize, hey, if you're sending an email, you need to put in the subject line what the email,
I'm just thinking from a,
I think if it's, I think it's easier for Patty, or it will be easier, I think, for Patty to manage a very slow trickle
Okay.
than a fire hose.
I'm done.
Okay,
I just have one last clarification. So they go in the minutes and then, so then we don't discuss them or like what makes a decision? So we received 2 correspondences.
so like, for example, today we have 2 emails that have come in. One, both regarding masks, one proponent, one against, and as we have, we'll take it up our next meeting, we'll be discussing the mask mandate. We appreciate the responses, and then those 2 emails get attached to the minutes for this current meeting, and then anybody that wants to see what somebody said has the ability to go and read that,
Okay,
right? Right, so, are we attaching these emails to the minutes? Do I need a motion, or should it be consensus of the board?
Can be consensus.
Consensus of the board is yes?
Yes.
Okay, and I would like the board to give discretion to the superintendent in the event there is something in an email that you feel shouldn't be published, that you have the discretion to hold something. Is the board okay with that?
Agreed.
On the email topic, I'm not in the habit of keeping my emails for very long in my box. We clearly had a right to know request a few weeks ago, so all of the ones that were in there, I forwarded. Does that expire at some point? Can I start deleting them again? Can I go clean up my mailbox?
Yeah,
Because
as soon as we
getting-
meet the right to know request, if you have a request that went back to January and you have those emails, it's against the law to delete them, but once you turn them over, you're fine.
So now I can delete the ones that I already forwarded?
Yep.
Okay, they're no longer mine, somebody else has them.
They're in the
so I
record
think they're in
and
the
you
record.
have them and you're fine.
Okay, great. And that's, request was as of that date, it's not an ongoing request.
Correct.
In perpetuity.
Correct.
Cool. Anything else regarding emails? Awesome. All right, who is walking us through the fire panel update and future plans?
Good question.
All right, you want me to grab the mantle? I'll take a whirl with it, want to take a whirl with it? Got it?
I just have the latest
You gonna do
email.
it? You want me to do it? You gonna do it? You want me to do
This
it?
thing we
all
gotta
you.
put in.
Here,
Who's doing it? So, fire panel's installed, everything is operational, we're waiting for the chief to do his final inspection, and then hopefully at that point, we are complete, wrapped up, and done. From there, the change order has been approved for the fire protection engineer to do the additional engineering work to fully update the system in this building should the vote in March lead us in that direction.
But we have to do it either way.
Yes.
Yes, no, the design work's being done. If we bond out for an addition, it becomes part of the bond. And that greater scope of work.
I highly doubt correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt the bond funding will be in place and available to us to spend the 250,000 to upgrade in here.
I think you're gonna have to have a contingency in your warrant articles that if the, and I can't remember if it's there now, if that's included as part of the bond and the bond fails, you still, I think what Jeff's getting at is you still have to do the fire panel.
What I'm getting at
Panel's
is,
done.
I mean, the redesign.
what I'm getting at is that we need to begin this work in April, May. And will the bond funding be in place to,
Well, we wouldn't start the installation, so say,
yes, we will, we have to.
Oh, I thought we could wait till July
I thought we
first.
were clear to wait till July. We won't have money until July either way. And
We should check with the chief, but they do their certification for July 1st, right? As of July 1st?
I'm not sure.
So
They come annually, but I don't remember what the dates are.
So would the board be comfortable with me calling the chief and clarifying a few dates with him?
Just let them know that we're doing the design work, we'll try to be ready to go, but we may not have funding until July first.
Is the board comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Chief
If
is
he's okay with it, right?
If he's okay with it, then right, that's.
Okay, I'll have a conversation with the chief on that detail. The design work has been approved for the engineers to start working.
I mean, if he's not okay with it, you could have a funding emergency.
Well, we have the reserve fund that we can pull, I mean, we can theoretically pull the money out of the capital.
FD, the capital.
FD, the capital reserve fund, or what is that? But the money's there if it needs to.
And that will bring our bond costs down theoretically because whether we were gonna give it back, but if we don't give it back,
It's not being.
it will decrease against the bond.
Yeah, so it should be net zero on that. And then,
It'll probably be cheaper because we won't have to pay the interest on the bond amount.
all right, I'll talk to the chief. Okay. Board reports, no PTO?
Can I just sort of
I'm
wrap up
sorry.
that one?
Oh, I'm
So-
sorry, I
So
skipped
that,
over F2.
that means that we are expecting to be all finished and squared away and up to date and safe in this building for kids.
We are
I mean,
safe
no,
in
we are
this
safe,
building.
I know we are safe, but
Right.
without a fire watch at the moment. Then that will be within the next week, 2 weeks, what's realistic?
I think we're just waiting on scheduling with the chief now and
They have to do an
an
off-site,
on-site, on-site.
making sure everything communicates. So chief and the alarm company need to know that everything's communicating back and forth,
Okay.
and then they'll remove the fire watch, so we're just waiting for that to happen.
But the new panel is up and running and they did chase a bunch of demons out of the system and replaced a bunch of gizmos and widgets.
But it might be within the next 2 weeks,
Hope so,
I would think.
despite the holidays.
Okay.
hope so.
All right. F, Andy, I almost skipped you and I apologize, sir.
You're good. I didn't know I was F.
So my report card looks a lot like this agenda.
So I guess the best way to summarize would be to take something Gigi had said, which was, how does the board handle correspondence and can't just reply to the email. So I thought it would make sense to have some sort of FAQ document on the SAU's website underneath the Deerfield board, where if we get standard questions about, like an example would be like, where does my student go to high school, or things about like public comments, like that you have a certain amount of time, and like how does this work? Why does it do that? That would be like one document that members of the public could go and see topics that might be of interest to them and get answers to them. So I just thought that might be helpful. And I didn't.
Clip notes.
Yeah. I mean,
I like the public comment thought, because it's a school board policy, but you have how many school board policies and how many people
Right.
really know about the school board policies or where to find them, and that's something that public comments happens all the time.
Yeah,
So
I
it'd
think
be a
this,
nice little,
certainly, I think it's a good idea. I think we can have something on the SAU site and possibly even something on the school site that just says, you tend heavy-hitter questions that you know you're gonna get asked continually, and you can always update it from there. So.
And then those potential responses could be used as an email. So if somebody emailed just you, you've got a board-approved response that you could send to them, so it's not just confirming receipt. It's here, this is the answer to that the board has agreed, or whatever that, you can send.
So why don't we, over the next couple of weeks, the next meeting's gonna be a bit of a.
Yeah, default, I could try to write something
I was
that
gonna
can
say,
give some
we just started,
examples,
you know,
but
and if anybody has anything that comes to mind, certainly just jot it down and we can try to compile a list. But I think it's a valid thought.
and it wouldn't, to be clear, it wouldn't be questions that like Kristen and the administration would get. It would be specific things that we're responsible for.
Board business.
Exactly.
What if we try to have questions ready for the next meeting? I mean, we could just post, them a list. We could each individually post our own to the meeting, the next meeting, if we've got we only need 5 minutes to look at the questions. And then if we can agree what the questions are, I'd be happy to take the next 2 weeks and write answers that then I could resend it to the board for okaying with the following meeting with some more discussion.
The other thought is we can just send questions to Nate to compile.
Is that a meeting?
Sounds like he wants to take that on, so I am willing to accept that.
I just heard somebody grab a torch.
That's a great idea.
It kind of goes along with the communication as well, right?
That's a great idea. Yeah. The idea is, what's the best way to do it? Is it just email me between now and the next meeting, or is it to?
Yeah, just as long as it's just one board member sending you a question to put into the document, that would be fine.
So just send
Just
you,
no
Yeah.
communication between you.
right,
Everybody batted up to Nate, we'll go
send
from
me any
there.
questions. Or is it gonna be like the top 10 you said, or, I mean, it could be 20 or 30, there's a lot of questions probably, so I don't know how big this is gonna be, but, do we wanna cover?
At a minimum, maybe there's 5 or 6.
I think
Like
we
if
just
each of us comes up with one.
pick something up
I
and see
mean-
what happens.
Okay.
Kristen, Patty, if you have examples of things that you think that we should, that you get asked that we should respond to, like.
Sure.
That'd be great, thank you.
I think the high school is an unfrequent flyer.
There's also the ability to put links there. in that
Right.
page, right? So
Yes,
it's an electronic
right, 'cause you
document,
could say,
can
there's
do
actually a
like
policy, I spend a lot of
And if you
time
went through
responding
the
to that
policy
question.
section,
Right.
then you can stumble through all 498 million of them and every
Did that,
combination
been there,
of alphabet
been
soup
on
that we have and
That's a great idea.
we can go from there. All right, so we all agree that Andy's brilliant on that matter.
I don't know about that, but sure.
All right, I do not see the PTO, so I'm going to skip over the PTO update. Nate is the executive board member.
No.
All right, so we're gonna let that one go. Ms. Withy,
Yes,
are you interested in providing us with the principal's report?
I most certainly am.
All right, fire away.
So this covers from the last meeting, December 2nd, Thursday, through today, December 15th. Our Critical Friends group, I've mentioned them a couple of times, is a group of staff members that get together oftentimes on either PD Wednesday or on a Tuesday afternoon after school. And they met this on December 8th was one of their meetings. It's a brainstorming, problem-solving type atmosphere. There's protocols that are followed, and so just wanted to let you know that meeting took place. Teachers have submitted their report cards. We're in the process of checking them and cleaning them up. And by we, I mean Brooke and Candy do a lot of that work. I go through a lot of it as well. Just making sure that, a certain subject, if there's no things are cleaned up and every single report card, every trimester is like a brand new template. So sometimes the templates get a little wonky depending on updates to Alma, and so we just wanna make sure that everything looks good to go. Our plan is to email them out to families on Friday. This is Friday the 17th. Print Friday has started back up at Deerfield Community Schools, so that's every Friday. A class is responsible for starting a fire in the morning, and all throughout the course of the day, that fire is manned by different classes. So it's never left unattended, and the last class to visit that fire pit at the end of the day is responsible for making sure that the fire is out. This Friday, we're going to be having cocoa at our sites, so the kids are really looking forward to that. Friday, was that the 13th? No, 15th. We had 8A admin day, so we met with, this round, we met with our preschool team and Mrs. Petroselli for technology and Mrs. Mostu for library. Preschool is working on all things December holidays. They are doing transportation with their 3-year-olds and gingerbread men with their 4-year-olds. Mrs. Mostu works with the 4-year-old class. They come up for into the library, which is a lot of fun, and they did a gingerbread hunt in the library. We found those little guys everywhere in this building. So the preschool team also, they adopt a family every year. So in lieu of staff gifts to each other, they put a pool of money in and adopted a family with an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, and they were able to purchase winter gear and books and toys for that family for this Christmas. Mrs. Moshu met with the Deerfield Public Librarians recently. The public librarians are looking, there's a new children's, is she fairly new? Children's librarian. They're looking to develop a stronger relationship with DCS, so they met with Beth to kind of think about making plans for the future and how can we collaborate together. One of the thoughts that they had is maybe in May or June towards the end of the year, take 1 or 2 grade levels to visit, the younger grades to visit the public library as a little field trip, to get to know where the location is, summer programming, that type of thing. What did I like that for? They also, if we are able to have the art show this year, they will come, the public librarian is gonna come and be part of that art show so that they can get some recognition. They're just eager to be more involved. So Beth also met with the 8th grade and is helping them with their climate change unit that they're working on with Chris Motika. Middle schoolers are using the library space a lot. Our 8th graders have a book speed dating in January. They did a book tasting a couple weeks ago, so they're gonna change it up a little bit. 6th graders are in the library every week. In our kindergarten, 1st graders and 2nd graders voted on their favorite Ladybug picture book. So the Ladybug Picture Book Award is a New Hampshire award designed to promote early literacy and honor a recent children's picture book. And during the month of November is when the librarians all across the state of New Hampshire read these books to the kids, and then the K-2 kids voted for it on Google form, and the DCS winner was Snail Crossing. So that was exciting. Mrs. Petroselli is working on strategies to get technology information out to staff. That's when during the CFG, that was the problem set that they discussed. Really talking about having a tech initiative and how can we get information out to staff, and there's so much right now on their plates. We discussed maybe using the January 24th PD day as a technology day and having stations built in throughout the course of the day. On Monday the 13th, we had CRB, which is next on the agenda, and Gigi will report out on that. We've started our 8-day countdown for our holiday break, so it's been very festive at DCS, including Mrs. with these earrings, because I'm an earring model. So we've had headwear and accessories. They had to dress like an ornament yesterday. They had festive socks today. Tomorrow is selfie with the Elfie. We have the candy cane day coming up. I'm gonna borrow Patty's red and white outfit. Holiday sweater coming up. We did not say ugly sweater because not everybody's sweater is ugly. Last evening we had the NBC meeting. Mr. Langlois did a wonderful job presenting our budget, and today we had SA leadership. It was a Google Meet. We had a few items to discuss as a leadership team in the district. Coming up, Chris Motika will be here tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with the 8th grade team. They're working on their interdisciplinary unit still on climate change. They're making a lot of really great progress. January, Chris will be here to start the culture work with 6th and 7th grade, and then when 8th grade is finished with their climate unit, they'll join the culture work that's going on. We've had a few basketball games. The girls have played a few games. Our boys have their first game on Tuesday, this Tuesday the 21st. They'll be playing at home versus Stratford. And Friday, our 8th graders will be visiting Concord High School. Oh, I can't believe it. It's gonna go by fast. So that will be on this Friday. We're taking a field trip over there, and I wanna make sure I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all.
I had something for you. When we met with the Concord School Board, I think we talked about trying to get some sort of
increase that.
earlier, is that like a next year, like,
That's a great question. I know, that, no, you weren't at that meeting. Were you at that meeting?
I wasn't there the night before.
The tour.
that was the tour, and then the conversation followed.
So, yeah, one of the topics was trying to start including Deerfield students, helping bring them into that Concord experience maybe a little bit sooner, so their introductions, maybe even start in 6th and 7th grade a little bit,
Oh, grade-wise.
grade-wise, so
Like
that,
team and activity based,
yeah.
something like that.
So I think that's something that we should, it was well received by their board, but we need to maybe continue pushing on those ways to help. And a lot of that was for the families, so that their first Concord necessary experience is in 8th grade, winter of 8th grade, this one meeting, and kind of familiarizing them, I think more so, maybe a couple of extra tours throughout the course of the year, and an opportunity for our families to go in, and then participation with some of the other programs, some of the music programs, having Deerfield students participate a little bit, or come and
Oh,
observe.
yeah, maybe if they were doing like a dry run for a concert, or they were doing a
Something-
dress rehearsal for a play.
Anything to help incorporate our students a little bit sooner into their,
We have to think about Runlet too, though, because they're the same.
we're not worried
Still,
about.
well, I mean, if you're gonna do all of them.
It's no different than bus drivers,
I'm
I don't
thinking-
care about,
I'm
how much
thinking-
bus drivers I care about Deerfields.
They're all gonna be at CHS together, was my point.
But it was just, it was ways to help introduce families to Concord and that potential Concord experience sooner in the process in 8th grade.
Some of we had mentioned things like, this is too late for this obviously this year, but for next year, as we're looking ahead to, for instance, the football season, you know, there probably are Deerfield families who might, if there was an opening, like in one night where Deerfield families get in free, I mean, it may be the range of families who want to go watch a football game in Concord.
Yeah, we actually do that at PA, we have a night, like we have an Epsom night, and we invite families from Epsom to come to a basketball game at PA to see the school and the gym.
Right,
Yeah.
something like that, where younger families would be interested in going to do that and see.
Yeah.
But like, not only like sports, like clubs and extracurriculars, so if
I
like,
think
if they have a
introducing
chess club and somebody from
plays,
Deerfield is
yeah.
really excited about doing something like that, they can meet the other people.
I'll also say that it was, both boards, at least the representatives who were there, felt that that's something both boards can do a better job with. So I think across the board, we need to try to help facilitate it, obviously. We can do our part, they can do our part, but we still need to connect the dots.
You know, there's the first robotics program at CHS is pretty robust, and so that season ends in sort of March-ish, but then all spring, I know that they like to tour and sort of bring the robot to various places, so that might be, you know, take a day and bring the robot to the gym here.
Think about how many of our kids, their minds would be blown to see what those high school students are producing those first.
And we certainly have Deerfield kids on the robotics team,
Right,
so it's
but I mean, definitely just to help kind of, it's that further exposure for them.
to the younger kids,
Yeah.
showing what
Excitement about that next level, it might be a new place, but that's something that you're doing today here.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. I don't know who got it first, so
Go ahead, Jim.
One question I had for you, Kristen, with Chris Motika, being a parent of a 7th grader, I got updated form back kind of on the homework policy in 7th grade, and I kind of felt touches of Chris in it, and so I didn't know if it was, you know, that intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, but I saw that, you know, the way the 7th grade team's now handling missings, is that something that was guided by Chris, as far as the way we're dealing with missing assignments and things like that, and is that direction you are looking to see the middle school go and continue
Yeah,
moving?
I think that they, we're just working together to try to just work on the culture of the middle school. And so Chris hasn't really started the culture work yet, but the 7th grade team was anxious to get that started and get that rolling. So, that happened while I was gone too. There's a lot of stuff that's happening while Mrs. Whitney is gone. And so 8th grade had been doing some culture changes as well with their Zero Hero and earning 4s and recognizing kids, and 7th grade sort of tagged along. We have a couple new 7th grade team members, and so I think they brought a kind of a different energy to the team, and we're excited to try some things that have worked for them in the past. So yeah, I think that we're seeing some seventh grade kids starting to lose interest in getting their assignments finished, so they knew they needed to do something to catch them up before we started to lose them, so. Yeah, so it's along the lines of, a lot of the discussions that we've had with Chris about working towards changing that culture. And then they kind of pieced it all together. So we're not waiting for Chris to start that, we're kind of moving it along as.
You know, I liked it, and it seemed like the direction we wanted to be moving, but I was wondering how much of it was driven from above or within. Because it was this, I asked him that question this summer when he was here, was, you know, if I didn't know my assignments, but I can get 4s on all my summatives, why should I be penalized type of thing? And it seems to be much more in line with that, not saying that kids should be skipping assignments, but I was wondering if that was the direction that you were hoping to see it go as well, just because I know as a 17th grade team evolved and changed as much as it did, if that was a positive in your mind.
Yeah, I think they're making it work for themselves, and each team really does things a little bit differently, but that's what we're trying to do, is bring those, they're all kind of doing the same thing, but in a different sort of way. So I'm trying to get some cohesion with the team, and building the culture that way, but giving them the rights to be able to do what works for them, what works best for them.
But it sounds like that was more of an organic occurrence than it was a top-down mandate.
I was not top down.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so that was an
Yeah.
organic, so that was recognized within the team, and that was a more organic approach to improving things. Awesome. Okay, any other questions for Principal Lee?
That
Yes, you have something.
actually bled into my question, so I think it was answered. I would just, you mentioned Chris Motiga and culture work, and I was curious about what that looked like.
So we'll start that in January. Chris is working on that plan still a little bit, tweaking it before, he'll be here tomorrow, and so the hope is that we're gonna talk about that. He'll share what he has, and I'll certainly share it with the board once we get rolling with it.
All right, that brings us to the CRB.
CRB did meet, and just as a reminder, we had approved the social studies curriculum. We have library, science, music, technology, and wellness with mid-year reviews, and math and guidance are up for revisions. And so having said that, there's been movement on the math revision progress. They just kind of reported out on that. They're just kind of looking time to meet with teams to organize themselves. And most of their conversation about that was just, you know, how will we organize to meet with each team. So Jamie was meeting with the 2nd and 3rd grade team, Jen was meeting with the 4th and 5th grade team before break, and the math team did meet with Chris. And so the other piece is that they were talking a little bit about readers. We'll need readers for the curriculum, talked about the benefits of being a reader for a curriculum. It was nice to hear the teachers talking about being, for some of the teachers like who don't teach math, and then of course all the elementary teachers who do teach math. And it was good to hear them talk about how it was so interesting to be a reader of the curriculum, to just kind of get really immersed in the thinking of what they were teaching and how it's built and how it helps them teach better, because they're more thoroughly immersed in like, oh, okay, I see where this scope and sequence is actually going. ELA, they checked in, they're doing competency rubric revisions, getting those out to 4th through 8th grade. And they're gonna do a quick run through of each grade level at the next meeting. And just discussed about making the ELA documents a little bit easier to access, and where they're stored. Library, they did a check-in, and they were kind of completing their mid-cycle review this fall. Also connected with technology, the library and tech are working really closely together because it just makes sense that they work closely together. The science, not a whole lot going on, except they did make decisions that Kira and Hillary are gonna chair the committee that they'll have. No major updates in music, but that both teachers in music were talking about incorporating more multicultural music education into the curriculum. And then technology, Brooke talked about getting new wording for digital citizenship and having some kind of user-friendly kind of reminders that are positive as opposed to don't do this and don't do that. And that that being a digital citizen now really also entails more than just knowing how to move your mouse and work with your computer, but it's about so some of the key phrases in there were I'm inclusive, I'm informed, I'm engaged, I'm balanced, I'm alert. Wellness was kind of status quo for right now. And Kristen, on the social studies piece, I was having a little bit of tech difficulty in the beginning, so that was the very first thing at the beginning of the meeting. And I see that they were doing some curriculum mapping and kind of talking about which competencies they met during each trimester and creating essential questions, but I can't say a lot about that.
They worked on that at the last PD day, I think would be the only addition to add.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, how'd that go? How'd I do?
How,
I'm done, so did I do okay?
yeah, that's very well done.
Oh, okay, good. All right, anybody have a question or anything?
Question for Judy, Nick?
The social studies curriculum was just approved last in May, right?
Yeah.
So then this work is just sort of coordinating who's doing what basically of the
Basically,
curriculum,
yeah.
is that what you mean, that's the next step?
Yeah, just keeping them fresh, working on making sure that all the competencies are covered, just mapping it out and making sure that every grade level is good to go. Working on some of their units that they have. Yeah, it's just continual work. It's some of it's new, some of the curriculum is new, as you know. So they're just trying to make sure that they've got all the bases covered.
And can you remind me about who, in the middle school, do we have anyone certified in social studies?
Yeah, so, we have, in 8th grade, Anna Clark is also certified social studies. And in 6th grade, Stephanie Flanagan is also social studies certified. And, in 7th grade, Joanne Franklin, has taken on a huge role helping the group, with the social studies piece. And they usually 7th grade will take every afternoon method that we have, they plan as a team, they work together, figure out what they're gonna do for the next week. 6th grade, their social studies time, the teachers work together, they're all teaching the same thing. And 8th grade has kept it, so 6th and 7th grade do that, so if the unit is on, they're doing immigration, all of them are doing immigration. And then 8th grade, Mr. Dudley teaches one subject, Mrs. Clark teaches another, and Brooke Laskowski is teaching a third, and then after a certain number of weeks, they rotate in the groups. So that's how they wanted to keep it, so that's how they're doing it.
Okay. And thank you.
Yeah.
And just in general, that's like just my biggest probably anxiousness of like just making sure that, because it's such an important, piece of between so much, especially in 8th grade, about like how our government works and things like that get taught, that it just seems such an important
Yeah.
piece, so just wanna make sure it's rolling along.
Yeah. I know that the 8th grade, I mean, they love their subjects that they teach, and they've got really passionate about it, and have really developed their units, and so they just wanted to keep it that way. That was the initial intent, that's how it would roll, and then 6th grade and 7th grade wanted to do it. So that's the fine balance of having a K-8 building, is that you let each team do what works best for them, with staying in some sort of confines of, what's best for kids too, so. But that's how that, and yes, so there are a couple of certified social studies teachers in our middle school. And Mr. Grieve also is social studies certified.
Right.
Duties yet unassigned. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
One more. You mentioned a new science committee, but I think science is at the mid-cycle point. Is the committee just to sort of map out the next 3 years until what is the committee doing?
she mentioned there are 2 new chairmen of the committee. So for a long time, we had Sam Wilson was chairing the committee, and Kira and Hillary, the 6th grade teacher and the 7th grade science teacher, they are gonna chair the committee and take it off of Sam's plate.
I see, okay. But it is at the midpoint, and so they are coming up again in 3 or 4 years, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, building expansion.
So we are racing against the clock, but everything is moving in the right direction. We met with the Valley Brensinger today, reviewed further distilled plans that are actually getting down to the plan level instead of just kind of hypotheticals, so that the construction manager can price those out. They're going to have pricing to us the first week of January. We're meeting, we're gonna do a public presentation on January 5th with the Valley Brensinger, presenting to the town.
It's the start of our meeting on the 6th. At the start of the board meeting on the 6th.
Correct.
Yes.
At the start of the board meeting on the 6th, showing
The
the 5th at 6, showing, the problems that we faced and how the solution cures those problems. At that point, we'll have a ballpark, a range of numbers for them, but there's still going to be review that needs to be done to the pricing before we can present an X amount of dollars number. That will be ready, around between January 11th and the 19th. We're gonna be looking for the MDC to let us present hopefully a little later than they were hoping. But that's gonna give us time to accurately and present that number. Other than that, anything else?
Any questions for Jeffrey? All right. Thank you for all your work, and the committee members for all their work on that. Nate, high school options.
Coordinating multiple board schedules is proving harder than sort of thought.
With subcommittees and budget meetings.
Yeah, we're especially during budget season, right? So we are not able to meet again until after the holidays, but we're looking ahead to picking it up in January, and the next meeting I think is going continuing with Concord, but nothing update right now.
All right, and then as far as the MBC goes, had 2 meetings with the MBC since our last board meeting. So a week ago, yesterday, we had an MBC meeting in which the architects from the Valley came in and met with the MBC and showed them the conceptuals and kind of explained to the MBC what a lot of the issues with the existing structure are and what we're looking to remedy. So it was actually, Jeff was there. I thought it was a pretty good meeting and a good opportunity for those folks to get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. We also met last night with our administrative team as well as Mr. Reardon and presented the MBC with our current budget, or our proposed budget. Did a pretty extensive walkthrough of the budget, and we'll continue that conversation with the DCC next week on Tuesday. Hopefully, cleaning everything up and moving it on down the road. Go ahead.
More about actually the building sort of plans, I guess, but tied to the NPC. The question is how do we're gonna get down to the wire, we're gonna get the number at sort of the last possible minute. And I guess my question is the sort of the sequence of events between that point and the vote in March. It's gonna go into the deliberative session. Can it be changed in any way in the deliberative session? And I don't know if we have these answers yet, I think we should do, but
I certainly don't.
no, it can't be changed in the deliberative session.
I don't think if you're going for a bond, it's a set amount for the project.
Okay. Okay, so then essentially from that moment, mid-January it sounds like, we get the definite number. We have, really nothing happens into the deliberative, but the vote on March 12th or whatever the town vote is when we see if it passes.
Right.
So how do we put ourselves, or put the, not ourselves necessarily, but how do we inform the town as best as we can to,
We as a committee will be doing education. The committee itself can only present the facts as they are. There's a group of people in town working that support the project and will be encouraging people to vote yes for it. We as a committee can say, here are the problems with the school, here's why we don't meet DOE standards. In all of those facts, we'll be doing things like foam boards down in the lobby, so for every parent that comes in Parks and Rec. We'll have a website up that the SAU is gonna help us with, that other group in town's working on a website, basically telling the story. So that effort's gonna go live right around that January 19th date. So it'll be, social media outreach and all kinds of things like that. Other public forums, so we'll have another public forum on the 19th at our meeting. Once the number's been out there where people can come and ask questions and say, why does this cost what it costs, and kind of give them a chance. So there'll be a bunch of community outreach between January 19th and the vote.
okay, sounds great. Does that mean that then as a board member, I should not be getting any more involved than just the typical meeting?
I would love it if you want to get more involved.
Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, I guess, over the next maybe couple meetings, if I get more information about how I can be helpful, please let me know.
You will regret that.
That's fine.
Okay. And I think, I know from my own standpoint, I have been talking to anybody willing to listen to this project and what we're trying to accomplish. So, there's gonna be a lot of conversations over the next, say, 90 days prior to the vote, but hopefully, we can start getting the message out across and build an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right.
I was just gonna say, La Valley Brensinger also is offering up to be really helpful and helping to create the, not like a campaign to vote this way or that way, but really to kind of lay out a compelling story about the need. These are the existing conditions, these are costs associated currently with those existing conditions, so on and so forth. So those things are in the works already.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
That brings us to warrant articles for 2023. So you should all have a copy. Did you get these out to everybody yet?
Yes.
So everybody should have a copy of the draft articles, at least in their very draft form right now. So Patty, do you want to walk us
I
through?
can start.
Okay.
So it was an interesting set of notes that I gave Kathy to try to type these up and capture what you wanted. I think she did a good job. We shipped them off to 2 different places. We sent them to Attorney Eggert for his review because he's the one that gives us the final go-ahead on our warrant articles. And then we also sent the first article to the bond council, so they also reviewed and made some edits. Dean let us know that the bond has to be the first article, so even before the budget, that has to be the first article, so that's why that's there.
That answers that question?
Yeah. I didn't know that, I had the budget first.
Nope, that's
So
not,
you
that
fixed
answers that
that.
question.
I did put his email in the drive to you as well, because I thought it might be helpful for you to see his comments on the warrant article, because I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to capture everything, that he was trying to, all the wisdom that he was imparting on us. And it's basically, the email I think is, you'll garner his response in your warrant article, because it's, set up the way that you want it to, but with a little bit of a twist. So the first one is the bond article, obviously we have to fill in, some more specifics. Then you'll have your operating budget, that's something that you can vote on tonight, or you can take it up as a slate, when you're ready. And then the third article is, referencing back to the bond article, that if that passes, would the voters also want to add a community recreation center to the school, and obviously that price is also pending. And then we're talking about if article, so there's a lot referencing back to other articles. So if the bond article fails, would you want to raise and appropriate $250,000 from surplus for the purpose of school building repair? 4A would be, shall the Deerfield School District, if Article 4 fails, vote to raise and appropriate $250,000 for building repair. So there's raise and appropriate, and then there's from the unassigned fund balance. So you talked about making that decision when,
So that's really, we really should be
Afterwards.
picking one article.
yes, correct. There's 4 and 4A, so it's kind of an either or. I'll just go through them and then we can go back, if that's okay. And then, number 5, if Article 1 passes, so the answer is you cannot use a trust fund, I'm answering the question the board's asked, you can't use a trust fund to offset taxes. So you established a trust fund for a certain purpose, it can only be used for that purpose. So you actually have to dissolve the fund. So you could dissolve the fund and then create a fund with a little bit more, less money, so you're accomplishing what you want to, but you can't do it in the way that you thought you might be able to do.
Back to the debt
Yep.
first. Okay.
Yep, so when you close it, it goes back to the taxpayers, which is what your intention is.
Right,
And then if you wanted to, you had mentioned, well, we'll get rid of all but a little bit, so you then would have to create the trust again with the amount of money in it that you were hoping to keep if you were able to do what you first thought you could do. So that's a circular comment.
So
Shall-
So the language on 5 would basically just say that,
It would, yep,
say
close
that it would
it,
dissolve.
send the money back.
Okay.
Yep, which is what you were hoping to be able to do. And then contingent on the passage of Article 5, so if yes, we vote to discontinue that facilities repair fund, now we're gonna turn around and establish a facilities repair fund again, which is what I just explained, and put $100,000 in that. So if you wanted to keep $100,000 in it and turn the rest back, this is how it has to be done. You have to close it, it all goes back, and then the voters have to say, okay, now you can create it again and fund it with $100,000. Number 7, shall the Deerfield School District, if Article 1 passes, vote to discontinue the school facility paving expendable trust fund. So this is where you said, we're not gonna need this anymore, so we're gonna turn that money back. If you thought you might want a paving trust fund, you would mirror what we did in the previous article. You can do, it's sort of pointless right now, because if down the road you decide you think you might want this, then you create it when you think you need it, instead of just keeping it open with, a small amount of money as a just in case. And then number 8, contingent on the passage of Article 7, which is that paving trust fund again, put $1 into it, which is what we just talked about. Decide to do that or just let it go and create it when you need it. And then number 9 is new, and I had forgotten to check back in with Amber because I asked her for the statute. So the statute changed a little bit, and I do need to get a copy, and I wanna share it with you, I haven't looked at it since it passed. But it did authorize, and this is be indefinitely until you rescind it, the retention of year-end unassigned funds in the amount not to exceed 5%. So it's up from 2.5%, it's now 5%. And my understanding is, I think it has more flexibility than the 2.5% retention that you have now. But like I said, I forgot to pull that statute again, so I do wanna look at that. So you'll need to, once I get the statute to you, you'll need to decide if you wanna increase that and, into the 5%. So right now you have 2.5%. Right now the formula is 2.5% of your assessed evaluation, you can retain up to that amount. And you've historically done around the $200,000. So when that statute passed, you had a warrant article very similar to this in order to allow you to do that, and it stays until it's rescinded. So each year, as if you recall, when it's time to do tax rate setting, you vote, because that money gets back every year, and you have to re-vote on, okay, do we wanna set aside 200,000 again, do we wanna set aside more, do we wanna set aside less? So this just raises your opportunity to set aside 5%. I need to follow up with the statute because I think there's more flexibility than there was with the 200%. I'll get that to you and then you can decide if you wanted to accept that new
So,
percentage.
obviously Article 1, the language is driven by law, so there's not a whole lot we're gonna do to that as we certain numbers when the time comes. We agree with that? Article 2, oh, Dave, I'm sorry,
It's not that important, I was curious why it has to come first.
because the lawyer said so.
That's all I have for you right in this moment is because he said so.
Because the lawyer said so.
All right, that works.
Article 2, in this particular instance, we've already passed those numbers, so we could make our recommendations for Article 2. If the NBC makes any amendments, obviously we would then go ahead and revisit it. But it would be appropriate at this time for us to try to dispose of something. Okay, so that being said, we're not going to be changing the dollar amounts because we've already given the budget to the NBC.
And
So,
you voted on it, yeah.
so I look for a motion to approve Article 2 as presented.
Second.
Moved by Gigi, seconded by Jeff. Any discussion?
Is that Jeff or me?
Jeff.
Oh,
Any discussion? Sorry, go ahead.
So are we gonna, as part of this, are we changing the school board recommends?
Yeah, well, this will start populating those fields. Hopefully unanimously. So, all in favor? Aye. Unanimously, all right.
So I'll be filling those in and it will say school board recommends approval 5-0. And then when we give this to the budget committee, any that you vote on, we'll have your votes in there.
And then we'll add their votes to it. If they make changes to our budget, we'll come back and revisit any articles or changes that we could. All right, so if we're looking at Article 3, again, that's gonna be pretty self-explanatory, I think, until we have numbers, no?
Somebody explain that to me?
All right, so, Article 1 being the bond on the building.
Right.
There is potential to add a community center, to Ms. Withy's surprise, on that side of the building at the same time. And the cost for that would be significantly reduced because engineering, construction, and civil side are all gonna be on site anyway. So the thought process was two warrants for a bond, effectively educational space that we need. At the same time, do you wanna build this additional community center? And then, if the first article passes, it would allow the second article to pass. If the first article doesn't pass, then the second article. Jeff?
While I fully support it, it has occurred to me that we've probably jumped the gun in that we haven't talked to Parks and Rec and gotten their blessing that they even wanna move here. So say we did put this on and it passed, and Parks and Rec is like,
So-
we've got a 3-year lease with you.
Yeah, I think I know the town administrator is very interested and I certainly, I think Parks and Rec will be, and I've already started that ball rolling down the hill as far as kind of bringing them up to speed. We showed that to the MDC, so we've clearly made it public that this is a possibility. I think for the moment, we leave the article in place, and if we decide to nix it at the last minute, we can scrap it at the last minute.
We can scrap it at the last minute.
As long, yeah.
So
Not at the last minute.
yeah, so,
But it doesn't, we can scrap it in a couple of weeks, if we decide we're gonna build.
yeah, so I think like we talked about earlier tonight, like, let's get that meeting set, Parks and Rec ASAP,
Yep.
just to make sure
Get them
we
on.
don't build a 12,000 square foot empty building.
So Nate, you might want a little bit more information than that, I'm not sure. So originally there were the 3 sets of plans.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest addition was sort of a weighing off both sides.
Right. Like a crab.
Yeah, so what's settled on right now is sort of this one side.
Right.
The thought was we could ask the question, do you want this other chunk? And that would function as place for the community that we've talked about before. If you had a way, right now, everybody going to the gym comes through the lobby and, into the building. This potentially could have, sort of a square structure with a door that can be locked in and out of the school, with a door that can come in from the outside that you would just have access to that space, and then another door on the backside. Just right now, just very rough. The thought, they presented us with, you might want locker rooms in there, you might want an office for Parks and Rec to have access to in there. It would be a space that, there's so much that goes on in our gym right now that it would, you wouldn't have to have someone come here on a Saturday morning to open the building. Like, this is a space that they could have access to. They could have space for their after-school program that they consistently don't have and want more space from, to use from us. And any other things that the community might, wanna use that space that they would have full access to.
So this would involve that idea that was floated, I think, for the biggest plan of moving the gym.
No,
No,
we would still have our
the
gym. Yeah,
The
it
school
would be a
retains,
separate space.
the school retains its gym,
The gym is here,
a community center,
not a new gym, not a second gym,
a community center,
Yes,
a second gym,
Open space.
a community center,
community center, okay,
which can be used for all sorts of things.
okay.
12,000 square feet, 2 locker rooms, 2 offices.
Wow.
And it's completely separate from the school. It's got, it's a 6-foot
Independent
door
separate.
connecting the 2, but
Yeah, okay.
And the school would also have use of it, obviously, during the school day. So, I mean, it could be beneficial in all regards. But a community center for this town would be a huge plus.
Agreed.
and that way it's not just part of our addition for this huge amount of money, it's, okay, we can section this off, and if this is something that's important to the community, we're gonna kind of leave it up to you to make that decision. Did I
Thank
capture
you.
that
Yep.
correctly?
So we can leave Article 3 alone. So Article 4 and 4A was that discussion, in the event that we need to add additional funds into the, yes.
Sorry, one last question just came to mind. If the bond passes, we're not really breaking ground for a year. I mean, is that a fair statement?
2
It's
to
not
3 years.
2 or 3 years,
Well, it's a year of design and then,
right? And if this is a separate thing, could this, if this fails, if 1 passes but 3 fails, could we come back to 3 next year and try it again?
I think so,
And still get sort of a reduced rate kind of a thing, theoretically?
get
that's a
some
good point,
level
as
of
long as
efficiency.
you're, while they're here and,
Still involved?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's gonna be engineering that would be triggered with the passage, it'd be heavier engineering, it's gonna be triggered with the passage. because it's already before. So delaying it a year would inherently increase some of the costs, because we're not doing further engineering if we don't, if it's not necessary. All right, so 4 and 4A, basically,
I did just, something occurred to me, I apologize. Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
no, never apologize. We're friends.
Okay, well, no, I was just thinking, so there is a possibility, the way this is written, that we could vote for a community center and not for,
Only,
No,
it
only
only
if Article 1
matters if
passes.
Article 1 passes.
so the beginning of 3 says,
Article 1 has to pass.
if Article 1
if Article 1
passes.
passes. Okay, I'm sorry, and I thought that, I was thinking, it was like,
From a vote tally standpoint, you could theoretically have Article 3 pass, but if Article 1 didn't,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
gotcha.
Okay. All right, 4 and 4A. So really, we kind of need to narrow down, in a nutshell, do we want to take the funds from surplus if Article 1 fails, or do we want to raise and appropriate an additional $250,000? Nate?
In 4A, do you mean if Article 1 fails?
Yes.
Yes.
If Article 1 fails, correct. So you don't get the bond, you don't get the renovation, you want money for, to continue,
So ultimately, the first question is do we want to,
repairs.
do we want to seek 250,000 to add to that fund in the event that the Article 1 fails?
I would,
And then where do we want to find that money? From surplus, if available, or do we want to raise?
I think we have a better chance of it passing if we take it from surplus. When people see it's not gonna raise taxation, we're gonna need that money if it doesn't pass. So I think we need to go with our best chance of it passing.
Okay,
No.
so,
And in that scenario, it decreases what we would give back to the community.
It's
But
money
it's
that's
the-
already been raised.
But it's the better of two.
so then we want to strike 4A.
Any updates on the current fiscal year?
No, not yet.
I mean, that was kind
We're,
of my,
we're barely getting budget stuff for, for budget committees, and when Amber has that all done, she'll be able to start looking at where we're at with
Would
this.
it be in the next 2 weeks before we have to decide? No, not likely.
I hope so.
Don't hold your breath.
I hope so.
Then I would lean towards the from surplus, but if we're not gonna have a surplus because we're in default this year, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot by taking that choice.
That's the gamble.
That's the given.
I mean, I think the silver lining there is potentially the grants and COVID money have potentially put us in a position to have a surplus, or is that still an unknown?
I think it's still unknown until we see where we're at in the budget. You can't supplant your budget, so you have to come up with things that
Grants.
you don't already plan to purchase, right? So you can't just say like, oh, we need more money, we're gonna take that grant and offset what we already planned for. So it depends on where your surplus is, whether or not that grant's gonna help your budget.
All right, so, Nate?
If we had more information by February 12th, in the deliberative session, could we change the language from surplus to taxation? Or at that point, it's locked in?
I guess it depends on the definition of intent. If you could argue the intent was to take it from surplus, I don't know where that would fall. I'd have to ask Dean
Could you-
every time.
yeah, that,
Could that language just be inserted?
Well, you can't change the intent, but if the
The question is,
intent
is
is
the
to put
intent-
money into the trust, then maybe it's okay to change the funding source. I would want a legal opinion on that.
I
before
would
we
too.
All right,
But that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Nate.
Thank you.
do.
so, for the time being, we want to tentatively strike 4A. We're not going to clean this up.
Keep
Okay.
4 and strike 4 in, yes.
Are we all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
So we would like to strike 4A.
Alright,
Okay,
so do you wanna vote on that and then change your vote later if you?
So
Uh,
moved.
we can certainly do that. You guys want to vote on Article 4?
Sure.
Sure.
All right, so I look for a motion to approve Article 4 as
So moved.
Second.
moved by Andy, seconded by Gigi. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. So 4A is gone. A question, just to my own mind on Article 5 is there a reason to not move Article 5 between 3 and 4? So that the option to give money back comes before the option to add money to that account?
Well, it's number 3 and 4 is if
Independent of 3, so, but instead of having, so should 5 appear ahead of number 4?
well, one talks about if it fails and one talks about if it passes.
Right.
So if it fails, you're gonna want the money,
But
if it passes, you
I
wanna
wanna
give
give
it
the money
back.
So if you wanna ask the voters, would you like the money back first, or would you wanna ask the voters for more money first?
I see the optics of
Yeah.
that, but by that point, they probably are gonna have already probably will have made a decision on number 1. And furthermore, the more I think about the funding and not knowing when we're gonna have the money available for the bond, if it does pass, I would fully support giving the money back, but I would support not putting it on the a warrant article this year. Because if Article 1 passes, then this comes back to the fire alarm upgrade we need to make. But if we drain that fund, we're gonna be sitting out there going, oh, God, we got $100,000 in the. Actually, we could end up with zero money in there, right? Because if 5 passes,
Right, you could end up with just what you have now.
And 6 doesn't.
or if 5 passes and 6 doesn't, then we've got
0.
0 and we're waiting.
Right, you've
Not
got
even
what's
voting.
in there, you've got what you've currently got in there, and that's it.
That's it, right, but
No, we could end up with nothing.
no, 5 only goes into effect if Article 1 passes.
Sure, but we still could have 0 in there for a period of time.
Well, no, that fund's already got a sizable sum of money.
Nothing happens until July 1st.
Okay, my misunderstanding.
Yeah, so you could put that in there. And if the bond passes and we are told that we have to have that new system installed, we could install that.
You spend it all before it closes?
That's not what I'm saying.
Wait a minute, I think it is.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's exactly what he said. And more so, can we confirm that if that Article 1 passes, we'll have the money available from that bond to draw on July 1? That seems like a very quick closing
We know, we'd
period.
have to still negotiate the bond and get everything in line. I mean, there's a time frame there, right?
Yeah.
So that would,
Well, I don't know, maybe they do, no, you have to have it approved, I think, first.
all I know is I think we're putting ourselves in a risky position and we need to spend $200,000 this summer.
Can we revisit this post-conversation with the chief?
Yes, but that work has to happen over the summer.
The chief, my understanding from the chief was that if the bond passes and he knows it's occurring, and he knows it's part of that process,
I'm fine hitting pause on it.
Yeah.
If he's okay with that, but we also really should figure out when we can start drawing against that Article 1 fund.
And maybe get that in writing.
Yes.
but I've tried calling him, I'll try calling him again, and then I'll.
Do we need to lock down these articles at our next, what's the last meeting that we have to have these locked down?
Really, it's the next meeting that we done with them, right?
Yeah.
To-
Should, yes.
Yeah. So we need to trim this up and clean this up as best as we can.
They've gotta do the budget committee has to have their public hearing.
And we really should try to tidy.
So we have to get in touch with the chief before the next meeting.
I'm gonna find him.
Yes, all right.
And,
I know where he works.
but we need that, but we also need to know when, depending on his answer, we need to know when those funds are available. We really should know when those funds are.
So, can you work on when the funding would be available from bond, it's already on the notes, I'll
Note
find
is
out from the
there.
chief, we'll clean that up at the next meeting.
My gut says we should just strike 5 through 8, but
5 through 8 in their entirety. I certainly think that we need to look at shifting funds back. So the paving fund, I think 6 and 8, I have notes on here to strike anyway, to clean up. Right, so,
It's really confusing.
right, so my mindset at the moment is strike 6, strike 8. Basically, at that point, what we're saying is if Article 1 passes and we have the bond for the new construction, we do not need a paving trust fund, we will be paving as part of the new construction. So in 10 years, when the asphalt is starting to consume its expected life and you're 10 years away from needing to restart resurfacing, then you develop a new plan then.
Yeah.
So my mentality is you strike 8, and frankly, for the time being, you strike 6, because if we do what we want to do to this building, we should not need significant repairs. We wait a couple of years and then we put the insurance policy back in place. That's my mentality, so I will say, I think we should strike 6 and 8, if everybody's in agreement, we should do that.
I think I wanna wait until we hear, I mean, if we're, so straight 6 and 8, yeah,
I want to clean it up as much as we
that's fine. I wouldn't wanna strike 5 yet, though, is what
can. I didn't say 5.
6 and 8.
6 and 8, right.
Yep.
You all do with that?
Yes. Need a motion or consensus? Cool.
Consensus, so you
Yep.
feel 6 and 8?
Killing it.
Already did, okay. All right, so that cleans them up. 9, you have to find out for us on. So really, that just leaves the question of 5. And then on 7, are we all in agreement that if we are bonding out, we're gonna make a mess of the site, we can dispose of that paving trust fund? So do we wanna act on 7 and make a recommendation on it?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Andy, seconded by Nate. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm in favor,
No flavor?
no flavor.
Alright, Andy's not okay. Okay,
And we're
Leave,
waiting on number
leave.
5.
and I need clarification on 5. Oh, I have one other note, I'm sorry. On 5 and on 7, can we put a note just explaining that in the event that we do dissolve those funds, where the balance is gonna go, so fund balance is returned to taxpayers to offset taxes? Can we put that note there, and can we run that language? I know there's always been
We
a,
just moved it.
Zach's just saying to clarify.
Could we actually put a note in there that says if you vote for this, if the money will go back to offset taxes?
Not part of the article, but just a parenthetical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little- it goes underneath a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oftentimes they do that.
So if we can just find out, if we can just clarify, we're not just gonna like throw the money away, it's gonna go back to the select board and they're gonna use it to offset the tax rate. Okay, are we done with warrants for the moment?
No, number 9.
Number 9, I think number 9, we can't do anything with until
Right,
Patty gets us clarification.
And you can have a conversation theoretically if you
Yeah.
wanna increase the ability to set aside 5%, and then I can get you the details on.
I'm feeling like that is gonna be interpreted as us asking for even more money. And I feel like this is not the year to do it. I mean, if it's in the rule books, okay, we can wait till next year.
To a certain extent, Nate's argument there's weight. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him in that regard, although I haven't put it in that perspective yet.
No, it's a great thought, because even if you say, well, we're not going to, it gives us the opportunity to, there's still that question of, okay,
Taking more
you just voted that you
So,
could take another
I would
2.5%.
I would be comfortable, based on Nate's strong recommendation, to strike 9 and revisit next year after.
And also, I can still get you a copy of the statute so that you understand.
So, how do we feel about striking 9?
Move,
Second,
I don't know if that needed it, but
done.
it's gone.
you always say it takes
Motions and seconds.
is that right? So we're giving them to you,
didn't
right?
know.
Just north.
Yeah.
Northern motions and seconds, all right. That takes care of our warrant articles. We only had one policy we were going to be discussing, correct? That would be GEP.
So I think we fixed the issue of the edits not showing up last time in the drive. Posted it. And, just one second. Okay. So what I did, I added at the end of the first paragraph, staff should refer to the Deerfield School Board Policy KEB regarding personnel complaints that may be brought directly to the board.
I believe that was tied more to the concern that staff members could be led to believe that they weren't allowed to bring concerns.
There was never a time that they could go directly to you. So I brought to their attention the policy that there could indeed be a circumstance that they would be allowed to do that.
Kind of in alignment with like that whole FAQ thing. Link to the thing. No, yeah.
So, any other changes, questions, comments? And do we want to move this, or do we want to have it for our another meeting and do it?
I'll move move policy TBD.
Second. We have a motion by Nate, seconded by Jeff Kelly. Any additional conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done, all right. Brings us to the Matrix. There's another one coming out at Christmas, did you see that? The 4th Matrix movie is coming out?
Oh,
Yes.
what are you talking about?
And it
Don't
looks
talk
epic,
about it anymore.
it looks epic. Ah, it's a lovely Matrix.
Okay, obviously, if you've been paying any attention, there's been no change in the level of community transmission at county level or town of Deerfield level, so that's still all points to universal masking. Second page, current information, Rockingham County substantial, Deerfield active cases is 27 currently, as of today at the school, there are 14 cases. And I think your fully vaccinated went up like 0.2%, so you're at 53.3% fully vaccinated. And then the last page is the CDC chart that determines the level of transmission, and that PCR test positivity as a 7-day average is 13.9 right now, and over 10 is considered substantial. The number of new infections per 100,000 over prior 14 days is 1,505, and over 100 is considered substantial. That's your update.
There's no good news there.
No, sorry.
All right. Questions regarding the data?
No, but, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
For next week's meeting, can we, read the guidance that you posted to the drive from June or July. But can we get clear guidance on what the CDC and DHHS is saying as far as masking in schools and with our situation that would apply to our situation?
They have made it clear, and I don't think they're gonna issue updated guidance, that's not what we're hearing. But they have made it very clear, and on the phone call that Kristen and I were on, that their opinions are not changing about universal masking.
So they want universal masking. Can we get that in some form of writing
Just the
or
website,
presentation?
turn off the website, is it that where it is?
Yeah, we can check in with Bonnie and see if she's seen it anywhere. And when Dr. Chan does the phone calls, he does sometimes do slides. So there may very well be something that has been updated, so we'll check. Would you mind asking Nurse Bonnie?
No.
If she has a slide or a handout or something?
Anything else? You had a,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Kristen how the students are doing, wearing their masks. Have there been any issues with kids taking them off, not wearing them, anything like that?
Not wearing them, we have frequent reminders, our middle schoolers struggle the most, I would say. And by middle schoolers, I mean more like 7th and 8th graders, they're reminded frequently, so. And there's just a few that are consistently not wearing it the right way. Oftentimes kids are reminded and they just fix it and we're definitely done with it, so. But nobody refusing to wear a mask. A lot of kids are running around outside with them, telling me that they keep their faces warm, so like to keep them on.
When they go out for outdoor classroom, do they still wear them in the outdoor classroom? I guess if it's cold, maybe they want to.
If they're physically distanced, no, but a lot of them just keep, they just do, they just keep. Yeah. Even our preschoolers, like they just, the other day I was watching, they were running outside and teacher has a baggie for each kid, they take their mask off and stick it in the baggie and when they're done, they put it back on, back in the school again.
all right, Nate, I had a
Informational?
line with your name attached to it.
Yeah, thanks. This is just information, not for conversation, but I'm looking ahead maybe and hoping that we could maybe revisit it at some point, but it's the Michigan shooting sort of jumped out at me a couple weeks ago, and the idea that there are all these, obviously hindsight's 20/20, and there's all these sort of red flags after the fact, but when they're happening, you don't recognize them, and that seems to be the message coming out of, which I hear often after these school shootings, so it's depressing to hear that we're getting into this sort of normal, and then it's returning after the COVID. But my question is, as a school, how do we, obviously can't get into certain personal things, but files and all that, but when kids make shooting threats, when they say things like, I'm gonna come over to your house and shoot you, how do we deal with that? Because it doesn't fit under bullying exactly, like this seems to be this sort of area where I'd be curious to hear more about.
We don't mess around at all, and we don't take it into our own hands, we call the police immediately, and we let them decide if it's a credible threat.
So anytime a child says to another child that I'm gonna come over to your house and shoot you,
Well, if we hear
that goes to
about
the
it,
police?
if it gets to us.
If there is a shooting threat of any kind, we call the police. Because like you, every time we read something that says, oh, comments were made, or kids were joking and nobody did anything and we're not taking that chance. So, you know, the police,
We've had a few.
the police will go and, you know, it's non-confrontational, just, you know, do you wanna let you know what your child said? Do you have weapons in your home? Does your child have access to weapons? And it's, if nothing else, it lets families and kids know how serious it is when you make comments like that.
Parents are brought in for a conversation.
Yeah.
They're present when the police are here.
Awesome, thank you.
I'd rather go overboard than under-report anything.
And it's written into Alma, it's reported into Alma, so we have documentation.
That's it, thank you.
That's it, okay. Public comments.
Patricia?
Good.
Okay, look for motion going to non-public under NHRSA 91A32, small letters L and C.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gigi, seconded by Andy, requires roll call. Andy?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is 7:46. We're in public.
Thank you.
Please,
Not running, just moving quickly.
Unplug it by accident again, we don't care.
Let me stop the thing first
Let's do it,
before you
let's do
mess
it.
around.